Hello and welcome again to the Authority of Love. I'm your host, Greg Williams, joined by our co-host again on this Family Foundation Friday, Mr. David Walls. David, thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you.
And I know there's a lot going on, but I have to remind people of this. In Love and Lordship, our vision and desire is that every life and relationship be built on the love and lordship of Jesus Christ. So I hope you hear that coming through, even as we deal with some difficult issues. And we're not always in agreement with those that are out there. You're going to hear some more of that today. But David, how are you doing, first of all, and how did the Somerset Town Hall meeting go?
Yeah, we had a great time last week. Great group. So thankful for our friend Brother David Carr hosting us, and thankful for our good friend Representative Shane Baker and State Senator Rick Girdler, both that represent that area very well, and had a good conversation on some important issues, including a lot of opportunity to educate folks on the school choice amendment too, answer a lot of questions. Certainly starting to.
What was your feedback from that? I mean, obviously you had people that were interested and knew where you stood, but what kind of feedback did you get
I think
on that?
Overwhelmingly positive feedback. Some good questions, some good number of pastors that were there. But I was encouraged by the questions, and I think hopefully we're helping educate folks.
Get the word out, inform and educate. That's what we want to do. So appreciate that. Now, I think there's several hot topics, but obviously we've got to say a little bit of something about the second assassination attempt on candidate Trump right now. That we've got to continue to pray.
Yeah,
there's obviously a spiritual battle going on here.
There is,
and trust that we're going to be doing what we need to be doing in that.
Yeah, well, we need to be praying, thankful, obviously, to the Lord that former President Trump's been protected now for the second time. I mean, look, regardless of your political affiliations, it would be horrifying to see anyone assassinated, let alone a president and someone who could be the next president running for president right now. So, but let's be praying for our nation, for the election, not just at the presidential level, but as we know, all the way down the ballot.
Yeah, all from state and local. There's people on it, all of that. So yeah, we certainly want to be doing that. So you stated that national and now state level. Governor Bashear's at it again, isn't he?
It's another reminder that elections have consequences.
Yes,
Greg.
they do. Yes, they do. And let me just say this, and I want you to jump in. When I say he's at it again, I'm going to say truth here. He's promoting lawlessness once again.
Literally.
And it seems to be the same issue, right? He did it with the schools. Now he's doing it with an executive order. Explain to our listeners what's going on here if they haven't heard or even if they have.
So earlier this week, Governor Bashear, on extremely short notice, announced he was going to be signing an executive order that, quote unquote, is to ban conversion therapy.
Now, why would you say extremely short order? Seriously.
Well, because he announced that he was going to sign an executive order
late Tuesday,
late one evening, and then on Wednesday he signed it, and it was clear. Obviously, it had been orchestrated. He was surrounded by a number of LGBT advocates and other folks that are supportive, obviously, of the LGBT movement. And just to remind folks, if you're not familiar with the term conversion therapy, it really has been used, particularly in the media and those that are promoting the LGBT agenda, as kind of a all-encompassing scare word to say that they don't want anyone to receive counseling that might counsel someone to
realize who they actually are.
Well, yeah,
you can say that.
To if someone has same-sex attractions or feelings, to counsel them out of that, or increasingly now we're talking about obviously the transgender issue, the radical gender ideology, to say that you shouldn't help affirm a child in who they actually are created to be as male and female.
Right.
And so what this executive order seeks to do is essentially ban counseling as it relates to sexuality and gender identity issues, and it's a one-way street. You can counsel folks and support and affirm them
and
in
even
those,
push them.
right?
Even push them
but to encourage them to whether that be through Christian counseling. It doesn't even any kind of counseling in this realm. If your license comes under attack in this. So, but before we go too far, and I know you want to share some more just about the concerns about that as a topic, let's talk about the process here.
Yeah.
So there has been legislation filed multiple sessions to accomplish this, a so-called ban conversion therapy
right.
bill. Those bills have not gone anywhere.
Died
The legislature
completely,
has flat out rejected them. In most of the cases, hasn't taken them up. This session, there was really no movement whatsoever on that topic. I would even argue, Greg, that momentum to pass one of those bills has been waning.
Yes.
The current makeup of the General Assembly, in a lot of ways, is looking to do the exact opposite.
The voice of the people.
To protect kids.
Right? The voice of the people is the legislature.
Yeah. And so, and the governor, referenced that in his press conference. He essentially said, the General Assembly, I can't convince the people's representatives to do, so I'm just going to get out my pen and do what I'm going to do. But here's the thing. Governors don't make laws. The executive branch is the executive branch, not the legislative branch.
Yeah.
So we immediately called this unlawful, as a number of other folks have. I think there's very serious legal and constitutional concerns, and we'll see where the legal dynamics of this play out. But I will certainly say I was encouraged by, we spoke out against it. Have done. It's amazing when the left or the governor, doing something that's kind of what I would like to say a California-style policy, bringing it to Kentucky.
That's a good phrase.
The media is more than willing to talk about it.
Yes.
And so we've done a series of media interviews, but I've been encouraged by how many folks have been speaking out against it.
Right.
Faith leaders, pastors, and some strong legislators.
That was my next question, David.
Yeah.
Where do you think that, obviously by not passing it and the waning interest, where are the legislators now, and probably the legislature when we come back in the new year, Lord willing, where do you think they're going to be on this?
Yeah, I think you're going to see probably legislation filed to rein the governor in on this on this topic. But I've seen a number of legislative leaders. I'm looking here at all those that have spoken out, and there's a lot in the House, and too many for me to go through. Right, and then a number of of the strong conservatives in the Senate signed a joint statement. I think there was 14 or 15 Senate members that put out a joint statement.
Yeah. Nearing the halfway point already.
Yeah, speaking out against this. So that's encouraging, but it's in place now. Yep. We have this executive order. It's directing, various cabinets to essentially go after any licensed professional, whether that's pastoral licensed or in the mental health arena. Right. And our major concerns, Greg, continue to be, one, that it's unlawful. Two, that it's actually going to hurt children, because it's not going to allow children that desire to receive this kind of counseling be able to receive it. It obviously tramples on the parental rights, because it would prevent a parent from being able to take their child to get counseling that they have decided as a family, and obviously suppress religious freedom. It is clearly designed to promote false LGBTQ ideologies and muzzle Christian counselors, therapists, pastors that are simply seeking to help children struggling with sexual orientation or gender identity confusion.
David, I want to say a couple of things. You mentioned earlier a couple of things. First of all, what they're essentially saying, what the governor in his executive order is saying, is we can work to convert them to think that they are the opposite sex, or they have homosexual attraction. Whatever. We can push that in our schools, our state-sponsored schools and everything, but you cannot work to convert them back.
Right.
We're actually converting them, but you can't convert them back. Right. Which is God's design, first of all, what they are. Yeah. So that's one thing. The second thing is this: why, when the left constantly wants to talk about science, but then they manipulate it to use it, because the best science is long-term and replicable. Right. We know that because God's order always works. Why would we ignore 10 to 20 years of evidence that's now coming out of Europe? And their response to this is now, oh my goodness, we've made a horrific choices here, and we are shutting down our clinics. We are shutting down these teachings. Yeah. That's happening all over Europe. It's not about truth or science, or it's about an ideology that is destructive.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what we're dealing with. So we need to stand up against this and make sure that people understand it, which the Family Foundation does a great job of. And then I want to ask one more thing and jump into our next topic. You mentioned it, parental rights. I think that has a lot to do with our school choice and Amendment 2. So speak to our listeners on that, David.
Yeah, there's certainly been a lot of conversation. Even this week, there was, I think you and I may have briefly mentioned it last week, but I've seen there's a television ads now out supporting Amendment 2. Our friend and pastor Randy Adams, educator himself, formerly in the public school system, sharing a very compelling case why he's in support of School Choice Amendment 2. He was actually featured on a debate on KET this week. I thought he did a phenomenal job. Right. So the message is starting to get out. But clearly, as you and I have talked, one of the big arguments in favor of giving more school choice and educational freedom, which Amendment 2 would open the door for, is to empower parents, because we know parents are the ones by God who have been given the authority and the responsibility to direct their children, including their education. And ultimately, educational freedom and school choice seeks to just ensure that there are perhaps additional resources available for families who can't afford the type of education that they may desire for their students. So a lot of these issues have direct synergy. Yes. And as you said, we continue to be concerned, certainly in some school districts that are promoting this agenda, and you're seeing a lot of parents rise up and say, this isn't what I want my child to be taught. Yeah. And so I just think, all this together continues to raise the stakes on the importance of Amendment 2 on the November ballot.
David, let me say this, having been a former educator and administrator for several years, I found, and I've been in public and private, and I've worked with many homeschool families through my mentoring and counseling. But it's interesting. I've found that I can honestly say this without any qualms. The public schools are state-sponsored schools. Now they'll say it's local, jurisdiction and those kind of things. But if Governor Bashear decides to do this again and push it through the schools, he's got that whole network of a state-sponsored school that has to follow this, or you lose your job. Randy Adams found that out, right? So we've got to. That's just by educational choice, and every state around us has chosen it, and the results have been good for everybody involved. And so that's another reason. Also, you guys are an official. Give me the definition for supporting this.
Well, we certainly we've been trying to educate folks about it, and we have a number of resources. A lot of folks are using our Facts on Amendment 2 handout. It's inside our most recent Kentucky Citizen.
Very good.
And we have been distributing, churches have been reaching out, distributing citizens. Contact our office. The latest breaking news is we've received some in support of Amendment 2 signs, yard signs, and we're going to be kind
official
of
distribution center,
a hub where folks can pick those up in Central Kentucky.
Right.
So if you're interested in that, we're still working on all the details on that, but you can contact our office at 859-255-5400 or send us an email at info@kentuckyfamily.org, and we'll tell you how you can get a yard sign.
Yeah. I think I'm going to take one home and see how long it lasts. Okay. I think it'll be okay. I think there's some that agree with that. Okay. But then finally, finish this up here. October 12th. Give us another speaker that's going to be there.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the kind of continued conversation on gender ideology, I'm really excited that Jay Richards, who's one of the leading experts on the concerns about radical gender ideology with the Heritage Foundation, he's going to be one of the keynote speakers on a panel that we're doing on the concerns about radical gender ideology. So I'm also excited that our friend and attorney, Greg Chafin with ADF, who's an expert in religious liberty, is going to be on that panel as well. A lot of great speakers. The room is filling up. Join us if you can on October 12th.
Yeah, I've had a few ask me about it, so I think we're going to fill it up. So thank you for joining us. Thanks for your prayers. Thanks always to the Lord. Make it a great day in the love and lordship of Christ. 12:45 is my good friend Greg Horn Hope is here. I'm Greg Williams with co-host David Walls, and you're listening to The Authority of Love.